Hi, I'm Deboki and this is Okie Dokie Boki, and today I'm going to be doing, I guess, a little bit of a reading check-in. Mostly this will be a library check-in. I haven't done any videos really in a long time, and I kind of just want a little bit of a refresh when it comes to the library check-ins. Just kind of start from scratch, just talk about what I have right now from the library and what I'm reading and what I'm excited to read. And then at the end, I'm also going to talk about a book that is not from the library, which is why I'm not calling this generally, I guess, a library check-in. I'm just calling it more of a reading check-in. But yeah, it was a book that I read recently that I really loved. So first up from the library is Lisa Jewell's The Family Upstairs, which is a thriller. I don't read a lot of thrillers, not for any particular reason. It's just hasn't been a thing I've read a lot lately, I guess. And so I don't know. I'm not clicking with this one. I think I saw this in a booktube video, and I think the review was a little hesitant about it, but I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched the video, and so I don't fully remember what it was that had me intrigued and what it was that also had me a little, I wouldn't say concerned, because it's a review, you never know how you're going to feel about a book compared to how somebody else feels about the book in their review. But there were definitely things that I'm now kind of maybe I should have paid a little bit closer attention, because I find this book very boring, which is just not a way that you want to describe a thriller, right? So this is about a woman who on her 25th birthday finds out that she has inherited this house, and through the process of learning about the house, that she then learns that she is the sole survivor of this really creepy unresolved set of deaths that happened in the house. And there are also other perspectives in this book that kind of take you across time and place to sort of link together, I guess, this mystery about what happened. But I am really struggling to get through this book. I'm maybe a third of the way through right now, and I just keep putting it down and finding zero compulsion to pick it up again, which again for a thriller is just not a feeling that I think you really want. You kind of want, or at least I kind of want my thrillers to be books that immediately have me turning the page to the next chapter to find out what's going on. I also missed out on the fact that this book has a sequel, which makes me doubly nervous now, because now I'm kind of am I gonna get to the end of this book and whatever little bit of mystery I'm supposed to find interesting, is that little bit of mystery not gonna get fully resolved? Am I gonna have to stick around? I'm having a hard enough time with this book. If I really, really love this book, the idea of a sequel would actually be very enticing. I would be I'm curious to see where this book could go with a sequel. But I'm having a hard enough time with one book. I don't know that I'm curious enough to stick with it for a second. So if you guys have read this and you think that I should stick with it, let me know. I don't know. There's just so many other books in my pile right now that I'm more excited about. So for example, one of those books that I'm more excited to read is How to Write an Autobiographical Novel by Alexander Chee. This is an essay collection. I read one of the essays for a writing class I took a few years ago. I really enjoyed it and have always considered returning to the full collection. And so it's one of those books that's kind of perpetually on my TBR, so that's why I checked this out from the library. Then we've got Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I feel I've heard so many people talking about this book and really, really loving it. So when I saw it kind of in the new book section in my library, I was well, this is my opportunity to see if I will also love it. And then also I've got All the Seas of the World checked out by Gavriel. I read A Brightness long ago last year. That's the first book of his that I've read, and I really, really, really loved it. So I've been meaning to read more of his books, which is why I have this checked out. And then I actually have 3 more books that I just checked out. They're in a confusing little pile. I just came back from the library, so this is fresh off the press. All 3 of these books basically came to my awareness the same way, which is that I finished the book that I really love that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, A Power Unbound by Freya Marske, and basically immediately was I want to find more books like this. And then I let Amazon tell me what those books are so that I could just check those books out from the library. Will Amazon's algorithm prove to be correct? No idea, but I think one of these books has Freya Marske in the has Marske is one of the blurbs in the back, and KJ Charles, so that's a great sign. So, anyways, let's just get started. Let's just go into it. So the first is The Mimicking of Known Successes. This is like a pretty slim novel. It's a mystery, it's sci-fi. I think there's a sapphic couple at the center of it. Blurbs from multiple authors that I really love. I think this is going to be perfect because, like, you know, holidays are coming up. I feel like right now is a great time. Oh, hi, cat. Did you just trap yourself in the books? I feel like this is gonna be potentially really nice right now, like in this end of year mood that I'm often in. I don't know if I'm often in this mood, but you know, like when it's the holidays and you just kind of want something like nice and chill to read. Like I like the idea of something that is a little bit smaller, that seems really interesting, and that is, I don't know, potentially really well written if the blurbs are enough to go by. Obviously, you cannot always trust blurbs, but I am hoping in this case I can. So yeah, we've got The Mimicking of Known Successes. Then I've also got Station Eternity by Lafferty. This is also space mystery. One of the things that really like drew me in from the summary is that the main character, Mallory Viridian, is apparently like one of those kind of classic TV detectives where like murders are always happening and she is the person there to solve them. So the idea, at least my understanding of it from the summary, is that she's like, well, I don't like this, so I'm gonna go off to a space station where like murders can't happen, like there are aliens around me, like what could be the classic, like, I don't know, Law and Order setup that will stumble upon my life today. But that obviously goes astray, and that's why we have a book with a mystery and space in it. At least that is what I think this is going to be. So more space mysteries. And then last is Some Desperate Glory. This is also space. There's a lot of space in here. For someone who like doesn't really read a lot of sci-fi, I've got a lot of space here, which is good because I've been wanting to read more sci-fi. I've been wanting to read, yeah, just more space stuff. I feel like for some reason space stuff is just like not in my regular reading rotation. So this will be good. Hopefully it will be good. So we've got space, we've got fantasy, essays, and, you know, a boring thriller potentially, unless you guys tell me otherwise. So now that I have my library books out of the way, let's talk about the book that I read recently that I really loved. This was not a library book. I bought it because it was the last book in a trilogy that I was very excited to get to the conclusion of. But this is just my general reading catch-up, so that's fine. It doesn't have to be a library book. And it also inspired half of the books in this library checkout video. Anyways, the book, as I mentioned before, is Unbound by Freya Marske. And this is the third in her last Binding trilogy, which is a queer fantasy historical romance trilogy that I absolutely love and I will definitely be revisiting. In fact, I've already revisited the first two books in preparation for this third book. So the first book in the series is A Marvellous Life. I like seen the cover a bunch and like have very low expectations for it. It has that like kind of newish illustrated style of cover that in a romance novel just like doesn't tell me a lot about why I should read this book. It's like not my favorite kind of cover. And so I went into it with very minimal expectations. I think I actually read it around the holidays. So this is in line with my like general feelings, I guess, about like the holiday reading vibes. That's like just a nice time for like a good, beautifully written, comforting kind of book. So yeah, I read it and I absolutely loved it. It had such beautiful writing. And in the book, we have this character, Edwin, who is this magician. We have this character, Robin, who is like completely stumbled into this world of magic, has not been expecting it. He just sort of kind of gets thrown into it, and not just magic, ultimately also like a murder mystery and a whole conspiracy. And this book manages to take these two characters who are initially very put off with each other, and over the course of what is effectively for these characters a week, like convince me that they would like fall for each other. And it's sort of wild to me how it's able to do that, because it never feels insta-lovey, even though, again, this is like over the course of a week. Like that is not a lot of time, you know? Like sometimes these things take time. The romance novels that I am usually most drawn to are the ones that take a little bit more time to build that kind of attachment and affection between the characters. But it somehow did it really well. It did it with this writing that I really enjoyed. It did it with a story that I didn't fully understand, but that like seemed very well done and that did a good job, even if like there were bits that I like couldn't fully grasp in terms of the magic. It did a good job of like building out these characters' stories and their relationships to each other and also to the people around them in a way where I didn't have to understand the world fully to understand like the significance of a lot of the elements that were going on in that world. The second book in the series, Restless Truth, it takes on that start from the first book. Like we find out, you know, obviously something's going wrong. Like this is a fantasy story, like something with the magic is a little bit awry and now we've got a mystery. It's building up in the second book and it takes all of that and moves it onto an ocean liner coming back from America to England. And this is part murder mystery again, but also part sapphic awakening for the main character Maud, who is the sister of Robin from the first book. And so that's how she's gotten drawn into all this. But there's also this mysterious stranger on board, Violet, who she's immediately drawn to for various reasons, including, again, the sapphic awakening. So like it's a lot of the elements from the first book that I loved so much. That writing that's really beautiful, and also that this book can somehow convince me that over the course of a few days, these two characters will find themselves deeply drawn to each other in a way that is meaningful and that can be the foundation for a lasting relationship. I think these books, what they do like such a good job of is displaying the vulnerabilities of these characters and also convincing you that like these characters can like provoke each other in a way to actually work through those vulnerabilities, so that by the end you're not necessarily like, oh, these two are going to get married tomorrow, but you are like convinced that these two are going to have something like meaningful that will like carry forth. And so definitely your Restless Truth, I thought, did a really, really good job with that. So I'm saying all these like compliments about both of these books. I love them both so much, but I'd also read them a while ago and kind of just tucked them in the back of my mind. I knew that the third book was coming out this year in November, so I was like vaguely like, okay, I gotta revisit them. I don't fully always remember the magic stuff. I need to kind of check back in so that I can appreciate whatever is about to happen with the last book. And so the way that I ended up doing that was I did it through audiobook, and I highly recommend the audiobooks for these. So A Marvellous Light was narrated by David Thorpe, and A Restless Truth was narrated by Aisha Kala, and they both do a really, really great job with the performance. I feel like especially the stuff that I was saying about kind of like the prickliness of these characters and their vulnerabilities, I feel like both of these narrators did such a good job with like bringing out those aspects of the characters and their performance of them, both like in the inner monologues that we're getting through the chapter, like the things that are told from their point of view, but also like the dialogue between them and like the things that we see actually like kind of being performed and all of that. So I just really appreciated these audiobooks, and they were such a good way for me to revisit the series and get ready for the third book to come out. And it came out and I loved it so much. So this book takes characters that we've met in the previous books. First, there's Lord Hawthorne, who we meet in the first book. He does not make a very good impression because like when magic shit is going down and Edwin and Robin go to him for help, he is absolutely a dick. Like there's just no like qualifying it, like he's a dick. And in the second book we re-meet him again because he happens to be on this ocean liner, and so we sort of see him start to go through a shift in that book because of Maud and like the way that he sees her as similar to his long dead twin sister. And so there's a really sweet relationship that kind of starts to build up in that book very slowly, but in a way where you get why this guy who was very reluctant to help in the first book is like slowly like kind of re-entering a world that is not a world that he wants to re-enter. On top of that, we also, in the second book, meet this journalist, Alan, who is immediately deeply in hatred with Hawthorne. We see it in those books from the perspective of Maud and Violet, but in this book, we now get to see it fully between Hawthorne and Alan, and it's great because this book is also about how they fall in love. So there's a really, really exciting tension between the two of them that I love because I always love a sort of hate to love kind of thing, especially in this kind of book where I feel like the books really want to explore the things that that initial hatred reflects in both of them, and some of those things are justified and some of those things are maybe less justified. And so seeing the characters work through that is just always a thing that I really enjoy. And like also comparing it to the previous books, I talked about how in those books they managed to convince me that these characters who only hung out with each other for maybe like 6 to 7 days had like developed compelling feelings over the course of those days for each other. This book was able to do a lot more because we had met both of these characters in previous books. And so there's a lot already built into it that you can kind of see for both of these characters. And so it's like the one book where there's already a lot of foundation laid, and also a lot more time over the course of the book to build that relationship out. So there's a lot it was able to do that the other two books couldn't. And because there is still this like dire magic world is at stakes kind of adventure going on, there is a lot of Edwin and Robin and Maud and Violet in this book. And so a lot of the things that we see kind of planted in their own relationships in their own books, like before, we get to see kind of built out more in this book, even if the book is not strictly about them. And so I really love that. There's like a really strong sense of like found family, of just these people forming a bond just that is, I don't know, it's just it's so sweet, even if it's not always rooted in something sweet. So just seeing how these characters have evolved over the course of this whole series is just, I loved it. There's so many things about the writing that I find very balanced. Like there are these moments that are deeply emotional, but also these moments that are very funny. And it never feels like one is coming at the expense of the other. And so I just found this to be one of those reading experiences where you just kind of can sink into that writing. I do have a criticism, and it should be a big one, but I'm just so biased by my love for this book, which is that there is a lot going on plot-wise with this book. And overall, I like that. Like, that's not a bad thing, right? Like, especially, like, I like a plot-y romance. I like something that is not just about the two characters, but also about this, like, surrounding story that lets you see what the romance means in the context of, like, some greater sequence of events. So I enjoy that. But you know, like that TikTok meme where like Taylor Swift is singing Willow and she's going like, the more that you say, the less I know. Like that is how I felt about a lot of the magic system in this book and really kind of throughout this series overall. I am really bad at magic systems to begin with. Honestly, it's because it's like physics. I hate physics, and the problem with physics is that it's too logical, and the thing with understanding magic systems is that they're often based in logic. Like obviously they're not based in reality, but like authors are describing some kind of system that is built on a logic that they've constructed, and I just cannot deal with that. Like, I love biology because biology is so fucking illogical. Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. The fact that, like, we can exist makes no fucking sense. And we don't need to go down that, like, existential crisis, like, right now. But the point is that, like, magic systems are always too much for me. And this one in particular is very like contract based. Like there's a lot of emphasis on contracts. Like contracts are actually central to this series overall. And so that sense of logic is even more like ingrained. And so I just had a hard time understanding a lot of what was going on magic wise. And this book was wrapping up so much magical intrigue, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure I entirely understand what the outcome was of all of that intrigue at the end of the book. Like, I'm not quite sure I understand the status of the world at the end of this book. But I'm okay with that. Like, I think it's good because I think it's good because the characters seem okay with it. And that is sort of like where I'm at right now. So I'm definitely going to be rereading this book at some point on audiobook because, again, had such a good experience with the first two books. Like, I will be revisiting this book on audiobook. And I'm hoping that when I reread or re-listen or whatever this book, I will have a better understanding. But I think it will take a little bit of time. But like when it comes to that plottiness and my like inability to process things, like some of that is just on me, right? Like whatever. I have a hard time with magic systems. That's not on Marske. The thing that I do think was a little bit frustrating, or like it's hard to say frustrating because it only really comes up if I think too much about it, and it's really easy for me to not think too much about this given how much I liked the book. But there were some moments in characters that I felt like couldn't get as fully explored or dealt with as I would have liked, and I feel like there's a world where like Mars could publish a short story collection to kind of flesh out some of those aspects, and I would totally read it. Like especially there's like a lot of stuff that this book is alluding to that's sort of like happening off screen between books 2 and 3, and they're not necessarily super significant to the plot, but they are significant to aspects of characters that we've met in previous books and relationships that we've been invested in. I just would have loved to see that given a little bit more time and depth. And I get why this book couldn't be the place to do that, because there's just so much going on that like something needs to be cut. But I think there is like a massive potential for a short story collection. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to put that out into the universe because I think there's like a lot of stories here that could still do so much to build out a lot of things that happen in this book, and I would totally read it. Despite all that, like I'm saying that I have these issues, but this is still a 5-star read for me. Like this is just absolutely one of my favorite books of the year. I really enjoyed reading it, and I'm totally excited to immerse myself in it again. And so I would definitely recommend it to anyone who loves like plot heavy romances and that has that like element of found family, of redemption, of characters who are prickly and insecure and just kind of need another prickly person to maybe help them out and find their way. Like I think it's really the perfect book for that exact combination of things. So yeah, that's what I've been reading lately and what I have checked out from the library. I'm excited to read some of these books, maybe DNF the family upstairs, and get some other books, get some space mysteries read. So thanks you guys for watching, and bye.